What I would say to these young women lawyers who are moms, be kind to yourself, right? The world is going to be cruel enough. You do not need to pile on. You do not need to add one more log to the fire, right?
Welcome to The Mothers-in-Law, a podcast exploring the demanding world of being a mother and a lawyer. Join my mom, Carrie Foliani, as she shares real-life stories and practical tips to help you find joy and balance in your life. Let's embark on this journey of community and support together. This show is sponsored by General Counsel West, a law firm that supports companies transforming healthcare comprised of mothers and fathers practicing law.
All right, welcome to the Mothers-in-Law podcast. I'm super excited to invite and have Sue Bunnell on the show today. She is an inspiration to me personally, and she is a role model, a rock star attorney, a straight shooter, a motivating mentor and professor, a successful leader, and a super mom. So we are so blessed that she's here with us today to impart her wisdom and her tips and tricks on making it through and shining through what it's like to be a mother and an attorney. I'm so excited, especially to have her on the show, because it is a conversation I had with Sue almost a year ago that actually sparked my passion to create this podcast, because the conversation I had with her was so impactful and really changed my approach to where I was as a lawyer and a mom, that I just felt like there's a need to create a space for all of you out there listening and for myself to learn from the best. So thank you so much, Sue, for taking the time to be here today. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. That's an awful lot to live up to, but I'm going to do my best.
You're doing it. So that's the amazing thing. And even like in looking at, who you are, I mean, I met you when I was around 7 years old. I remember you as a bubbly, enthusiastic spirit and someone I always looked forward to seeing. And there was a lot of people in my life, and you do stand out. So it was a little ironic when a good mutual friend suggested we reconnect to see that same spirit shine through. And I just am so impressed by what you've accomplished. Even alone being the assistant general counsel and executive director at Wells Fargo, that's enough. But looking at all of the things and all the places that you devote your time and energy for the better of others is totally blows my mind, especially knowing that you've also raised two amazing grown men. So we just want to know how you've done it. And you do have that special quality of telling it like it is and being raised by, the OG Tina Foliani with that same philosophy. I would love you to just impart with us, like, what do you think lawyer moms really need to hear, even if they don't want to? We could start there.
Well, I'm not sure it's even if they don't want to. I think our profession is cruel. I think our profession sort of starts with everything should be perfect, and anything short of perfect is a failure. I think we do a terrible job in law school and in the first couple of years of practice of helping folks to understand that they're learning, right? And it's okay to not be perfect when you're learning. But I think if I was talking to a 26-year-old who had recently graduated from law school, I would say start a self-compassion practice. I think we are a service profession. We are white collar waiters and waitresses, right? We're called on to try and bring exactly what was asked for. Sometimes the kitchen doesn't have it. But the reality is that, like, I think a lot of lawyers are really high achieving people pleasers. And I think that motivation is great. The desire to be of service and to do service is fantastic. But I think we frequently, certainly in our earlier years of practice and in our earlier years of motherhood, it's often not in service of others and myself. It's in service of others to my own detriment, right? I don't need to sleep.
Right.
I don't need to I don't need to have anything.
Eat.
So I think wash my hair, all luxuries. But I think what I would say is learn to try to satisfy. This is good enough, right? Now, if you're filing a brief with the United States Supreme Court, no, go all out. Please stop sleeping. Yeah. But I think for the most part, and I'm 31 years a lawyer, and, let's put it this way. I have a from form problem. Every time I try to type the word from, I type form and vice versa. And so I've just said, if the mediator would understand what I was saying, if the court would understand what I'm saying, like, let's reduce everyone's blood pressure in the room. Like, waiting till something is so perfect that it can't be perfecter, not a word, is that last, diminishing marginal returns, my economic degree is coming in handy right now, is that last 7 to 10% of effort very rarely brings about much, if anything, improvement in the situation. And that last 7 to 10% of the effort is when you would be sleeping, washing your hair, eating, reading a book,
takes you down,
doing a wee Netflix cleanse. I do think we can have it all. I don't think we can have it all at the same time.
Yes. No,
I
agree.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of pacing. Again, people look at my career and they look back longitudinally, like just like you were doing. You were cruelly setting me up.
Oh my goodness. Oh my God.
Obviously, I know it's all a setup. I'm okay with that. I don't care. But it's like I wasn't a senior leader in a law department and a professor and running a nonprofit and having a little side hustle. And I wasn't doing all that at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so, I talk to college age folks all the time, and they'll look at your LinkedIn and they're like, oh my God. I'm like, at any given moment, I had no idea what was next. I live in a place where I'm asking, how can I make a difference? And I'm lazy enough to say, how can I make the most difference with the least amount of effort, right? And so oftentimes I'm like, how do I take this message and bring it to 100 people, not to one person? Not to say that the one-on-one conversations aren't powerful, because I really do. I think at the end of the day, I really do believe that the one-to-one connection is the most powerful of all, but it doesn't scale, right? I'm one person. And so I'm a big fan of really thinking about like how I can get this message out there. A friend of mine is an evangelist for people writing their own book. And so I am in stealth mode on writing my own book. So stealthy that it really almost looks like I haven't started, Carrie, but in my head, I've started playing. No, I mean, what I would say to these young women and young women lawyers who are moms, what I would say is be kind to yourself, right? The world is going to be cruel enough. You do not need to pile on. You do not need to add one more log to the fire, right? Understand when you're in the right place, right? Yeah. Even when I was at a place that was, had terrible hours and some really super challenging work, I was happy to be learning, even though I didn't like some aspects of the job, right? And when I stopped getting energy from the job, I was like, I gotta do something else, right? That's one of the things I always tell people when they're in a quandary about what to do, right? So pay attention to about 2 weeks, 2 work weeks, and every major task, not the minor stuff, but every major task, ask yourself, did that jazz me up? Did that give me energy? Or did that bum me out and deplete me? Or is it just like something you got to do, right? Because every job has a decent amount of something you got to do.
Yes.
That's like,
no, it's fair. It's fair.
Yeah, this isn't fun time, it's work time. But I think when you, go ahead.
Well, no, I think I love that kind of framing of it. And I also am curious, like, does that feed into, like you referenced, this self-compassion project? Is that part of that energy assessment? Or like, I've never heard of that. Like, what is that? Like,
I can't recall who I stole it from. Believe me, I don't think there's an original, but I just think that, like, there are some people who have a terrible boss, and there's just not a lot you can do unless you have a terrible boss who's totally hands off. Like, that's about the only way you can have a terrible boss, right?
Yeah.
Well, right. But at the end of the day, and I'm a big believer that people don't leave jobs or companies, they leave bad managers. Yeah. And I think, right now we're living in a time of incredible job insecurity. Just by way of example, like LinkedIn published something like on a confidence scale that goes between -100 and +100. Right now we are at 23 in the job market, +23. But by way of comparison, you'll recall how dire things were in the first months of the pandemic in terms of people getting laid off and what have you. We were at 30 then, if that tells you how folks are feeling now. Because then state and federal jobs were still safe as houses, right? And now you've got AI in this corner, and you've got state and federal jobs going away, and then you've got layoffs happening over here. And it's really a three-legged stool of terrible. The reality is folks are feeling really challenged. They're feeling really unstable and uncertain. And I think when you're unstable and you're uncertain, we tend to play small. And I get it. Like, everyone needs to have a roof over their head. Everyone needs to feed their kids. Like, if you have a terrible job and that's what's available right now, I'm not saying walk out, tell people to F you and slam the door. But I think the women who are listening to your podcast are smart and thoughtful and intentional. And so instead of just being in it, like the best piece of advice I can have is, even if it's baby steps, you need to start taking tiny steps to feel a sense of control and feel a sense of agency. Because when you're moving yourself forward, however slowly, you feel different about living in this world than feeling like you're a victim. And I get it. Like, there are plenty of things. I mean, as a woman who, for the first 20 years of walking into a room, I was the secretary or the paralegal. I don't litigate, or I probably would have also been the court reporter. Again, I look young.
A sandwich girl. I was a sandwich girl. So that's,
Well, I mean, honestly, like, if you had kids, that would have been great.
No, they're like, when is she bringing our food? I'm like, I'm actually work for you. But it's okay. Yeah, it happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all had that experience, and I know some of the younger women are going to be like, shoot, that still happens to me.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm often in rooms where I am the only woman, on a senior leadership call, and I'm repping for all of us, right?
Yes.
So, but what I can say is, when you look at your situation, you really try and, I enjoy this intellectual pursuit. I enjoy this type of client. I enjoy this area of the law. I right now at 31 years of practice have the best client I've ever had. I have the best manager I've ever had. There are individual projects and aspects of work that are not like, this is delightful, I don't need a massage. No, I still need a massage. But I'm having more fun.
That's so awesome.
Than I've ever had. Yeah. And it's a direct result of some really intentional choices about the level I want to be at, the kind of role I want to be in, right? Some really intentional choices about what ambition looks like for me. And I had an opportunity last summer to take on a team of 25, 30, and it would have been a significant jump in dollars. But it also would have been another 25 hours a week. And exposure to some senior executives who were, and I say this with love in my heart, not my favorite.
Yeah.
And, I think it's important, like, I'm super ambitious, but I'm lowercase a ambitious.
I love that.
I want to do the very best job I can. I want to not just do great in my corporate legal job. I want to do great in my nonprofit. I want to do great in my mentoring. I want to do great as a professor, right? So I have lots of lowercase a ambition. I think there's a lot of people think that ambition is sort of only capital A ambition. It's pointy and it always goes up, right? And I think that sense of self-compassion and self-acceptance is understanding what ambition means to you. Now, I know lots of folks who are capital A ambitious, and I love that for them.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yes.
It just wasn't me. And I think when you start to feel like there's one path to happy, there's one path to good, there's one path to success, I think if you're feeling that way, I would ask anyone listening to this to step back and say, no, not TV, Instagram world, social media lands, like, what makes me happy? And that's why I think that energy audit is so fantastic.
So
and you can
powerful.
You can do it in your regular life too.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
there's some friends you leave and you're just like, I'm effing tired.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have a friend who's going through something hard and you're there for all the right reasons. But sometimes you have a friend who, like, every time you see them, it's just like, this is too much.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying cut people out of your world, but I'm saying you need to be thoughtful about where you put your time and your energy.
Yeah. And even know that.
And with, there's some people, like, it doesn't matter. Like, if somebody said you guys had to dig ditches or you would
do it.
Thorns off rose bushes, you would be giggling and laughing and having a joy of a time the whole time, right? So, I mean, again, go find the places that fill you up. Again, talking about the uncertainty in the economic and the employment world, like, I'm not saying go hop off a cliff and hope somebody builds you a feather bed at the bottom. But what I'm saying is standing there with little T-Rex hands going, I can't do anything, is also not the path, right? I think taking those steps, it really makes a difference. So the little ones.
I totally agree with that. And I really like, what you just shared, even on ambition, it's so worth repeating, because that really was one of the poignant things that got my butt out back in gear, I would say, to not really depreciate my own journey, because I wasn't a pointy A. I'm not a pointy A. And I didn't even know you could spell it a different way, to be honest. Like, when you shared that, it really was a mind-blowing moment, because I've also feel like I've surrounded myself with curvy A people, with the lowercase a that are making such a huge impact. And so I do think like, I'm grateful that you're a lowercase a, because I do think that's what has allowed you to bring in so many people into your life that have made your career such a success also. You know, I do feel like that approach, like even, and I don't know if you have a different perspective when you had kids and young children, one was practicing law this much fun, and were you still aware of the ambition approach that you had taken? Was that still part of your, you know, because you really do step back in certain ways, right? Your priorities are shifted.
Well, I mean, I definitely, like, I was in a very busy I was in a technology company. I was one of a handful of lawyers. Like, I had clients down the hallway who just would come darken my door and stand there until they would get served, which was delightful. I've learned never have your clients down the hall from you. No, really. I'm
okay.
doing that joking.
Tip, everybody.
My clients are all over the country and world, but they're, you know, mediated through, it works out great. No, but what I picked, you know, when we knew we were going to have a family, I picked a job that was interesting and was challenging, but didn't have as many hours, right? I was already in-house, so it's not like I went from a law firm to in-house. I'd already moved in-house. But, you know, I was surrounded by people who are like, I'm going for partner and I want to be general counsel. And I'm like, I'd like to see my children. So we all, I mean, like, I mean, again, you know, that was my priority. Right. Yeah. My kids were in childcare, and, you know, I had lots of friends who were at home taking the position that, oh gosh, I would just hate it if somebody else raised my children. And I bit my tongue, because I'm sure it did not come from a terrible place, as much as it felt like an absolute dagger to my heart, because I know I raised my children. Right. Yeah. I know that there's no one else who they want and love more than their mom. And I was thrilled by the fact that they were able to trust in the world and trust that they would get care, and that all day, every day felt like a 10 or 12 person party, as opposed to the probably substantially less fun version, which would be me on my phone, bored out of my gourd, and them staring at me, or them making me read the same book over and over again. And I had a limit 3 times. So I remember I could read a book.
Generous. That's very generous. But I think letting go of that, like, that's a big struggle for a lot of people. And some people had their family that were the ones, but some people have them in daycare, and giving them the experience of trusting and loving and being loved by other people is just as important as what your needs were. Because I think, you know, and was a crazy hoarder mom. I'm not going to deny that. And I wanted that for myself, quite honestly. And I'm not always certain that it was the best for my kids, but it was my stubborn way of doing it. And I look back, and I do remember, like, one of my neighbors who was a little older saying, the most well-adjusted kids are the ones that spend more time in daycare. And then she, like, gave a glancy look to my children who were, like, doing inappropriate things. I'm like, thanks for the information, you know?
Well, it's funny, the studies from back in the day that would measure, like, child behavior, you know, age appropriate behavior, all those things. Obviously the children in care were measured by the much more objective caregivers.
Yes.
The children who were at home were measured by the parents, and they're like, oh, you know, and I, you know, the studies that you would read would show that the children at home were much better behaved, and the children in care acted out a lot more. And I was like, who's answering the question?
Right.
So yeah, no, I again, you know, everyone needs to do, I mean, and that's kind of my thing. Everyone needs to do what works for them. But you can't say, I'm doing what works for me, but I'm still gonna internalize the judgment of the outside world. Like, if you're doing what works for you, then be super psyched, right? Yeah. I think, you know, there are some trade-offs. There's some financial trade-offs for sure. I think there's, you know, I think as much as work can be overwhelming sometimes, it also is, I mean, we are smart, hardworking, productive people. It feeds a part of our soul to be productive and to hear thank you. Like, the hardest part for my friend who was at home was that, again, where the baseline is 100 and everything less than that is measured as a failure. She's like, you know, my kids and my spouse would come home, and anything that wasn't perfect was like, what did you do? Right? As opposed to, there's food, there's clothes, the house is clean enough, like the car has, whatever it is, right? Like, you were never measuring from zero and saw all the stuff that was done. It was always like, we don't have Cheese Whiz. Wait, you know, I don't have my 19th, you know, lacrosse stick. You know, you know, they were always measuring what wasn't done. Yeah. And so they're like, you're so lucky. You hear thank you all day long. And I was like, yeah, I do hear thank you all day long. And I loved it.
I need that, and I enjoy that experience. And I do think like the long-term gratification is what I basically sum up as parenting. Like it may never happen, and I sitting around waiting for that is, probably a fruitless thing. Like every once in a while I get a moment and I'm like, oh, it's like an injection of like energy of joy that I appreciate. But I do think that I love working because one, it's like a controlled environment also. And there is that, accolade and that uplifting experience. It is hard. I mean, I think, do you look back when your kids were young and you were not gunning for a partner, but gunning to spend time with them? How did you manage? Was there ever feedback that you received around being a mom? Because I think that the tides have changed a little now where it's more embraced and accepted to be a present parent, which was not the case when I, started out the journey. And I don't know what it was like for you to navigate when you first have your kids, that it's going to shift your work experience as well.
Well, I mean, quite honestly, I thought being a good parent made me a better lawyer. I was better able to set an edge, to set a boundary. I was better able to tell folks, like, this is what, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. Here are the good and bad consequences. And I mean, short of, I'd never let a client break the law, but most of the decisions that I'm in this space for, it's like, here is the range of risks from the range of choices you have. So you make a business decision, right? So really and truly, like, counseling and helping folks to understand consequences of choices they made, fairly consistent. I mean, slightly different language and certainly different topics that they're making choices over. But I mean, quite honestly, learning how to set a boundary, learning how to be authoritative without being authoritarian, learning how to come from a place of, and I parent super transparently. Like, I'll also totally lie to my children. I'll get to that in a second. But I have no problem. I'm going to tell you the very best lying to your children story that I will share with your audience, and they'll love it. If I forget, remind me about McDonald's.
Oh, I will.
So, I mean, I would parent really transparently. Like, my kids would come to me and like, Mom, can I have ice cream? And I'd be like, hey, here's the deal. Like, I can't give you the ice cream now because you're crying. And if I give you the ice cream now, I'm going to reinforce for you that crying works. And I need you to understand that crying doesn't work, because that's manipulative. And if you're truly sad, let's sit with your sadness. But I need you to understand I'm doing this really intentionally, because I can't have the parent with the kid who cries to get what they want. Like, I can't have that. Or like, my kid would be acting out and I would leave a full cart of groceries and say, sweetheart, if how you need to act right now is more important than us buying this food, then I will leave it. But that means all the food in this cart is not going to get purchased, including X and Y and Z thing that you wanted. So I need you to make a choice now. What's more important?
Yeah. Wow.
Right. And so like, I'd have these really like super candid conversations of like, this is why I'm parenting you this way. But I have the same conversations with my clients, obviously very different, but I'm like, look, here's the deal. I've asked you to come to these meetings. We're negotiating this contract. Your input is really clear. I'm going to do my very best, regardless of whether you show up. But please understand, your failure to show up may mean that your concept isn't included, or the remedy you're hoping to see isn't included. And we still need to move forward, right? Yeah. When I send you the contract and you don't read it and you say it's fine, and then later you say it's not fine, I'm going to need you to understand that that's a choice you've made, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But you don't get to have your cake and eat it too. That's not how this world works, right? So I am like crystal clear on choices and consequences. And I think it makes me both a better parent and a better lawyer. And I think the two, feed off each other.
I mean, how do your boys respond to that? I mean, I can imagine this, you were doing this supermarket situation with like a 6-year-old, right? Like I can see a young child getting, the lawyer mom approach.
Younger.
Probably younger. Okay.
Yeah.
And how did it affect your relationship? Because I feel like if you did it so early, which is really a smart move,
it would go like this. My kid would be like, I don't like this. And I go, I get it. I don't like it either. Like, this is embarrassing to me that we're having this conversation with 10 people in line behind me. Like, I get it. Like, not liking it is perfectly fine. It's okay that you don't like it. The question is, what are you going to choose to do? Now, again, I think I had neurotypical children who were able to moderate their behavior. I did a lot of things, like the minute we walked into the grocery store, I gave them, like, we were always buying bananas. I gave them a banana. And when we went to the checkout stand, I said, please weigh one banana twice, because my kid ate a banana. So I learned how to work
Yeah.
them appropriately. I learned how to set up a situation so that I was getting what I needed and what I wanted. But when they said, I don't like it, that's okay. Like, it's okay for you not to like something and do it. Not everything in your life you're going to like. Some things you just need to do.
Yeah.
And, I mean, each of my kids said, I hate you one time.
Wow.
That was my one absolute line in the sand. You can say, I don't like you right now. And that's what I told them. I said, you are welcome to say, I don't like you right now. Because, by the way, sometimes, my sweet friend, I don't like your behavior, like, to be clear. But you don't ever get to say, I hate you. That's not, that was an absolute line in the sand for me. But I'm like, that's okay, right? And the same thing with bad behavior. Like, sometimes you'll have a client stomping around like a toddler. I often call them mantrums because they typically come from the men that I deal with. And I was like, it sounds like you need to take a minute. You sound really upset, and that's okay. Why don't we talk when you're feeling a little better? And that's exactly what I would do with my children, which is like, I'm totally fine that you're upset with this. I'm not going to put you in timeout, but I'm going to have you go to your room and maybe just play quietly until you're able to have a conversation about this. And that was at 3 and 4.
Wow.
Like, awesome. It's like, I mean, did they do it well, Carrie? No. Did they throw stuff around the room like
still, yeah, it's a structure, and I think some of the lawyering mindset that brings in that kind of practicality and takes the emotions out of the whole experience. I mean, of course, it's still emotional to some degree, but it's like,
of course,
it's at a baseline where you can still navigate the complexity of these human beings because you're doing that every day with adults, really. I mean, with different projects.
Well, I mean, would I sit in the kitchen and go, yes, sometimes I would, but again, I'm a big start as you mean to go on kind of person, right? Like, my children, I've got 2 kids graduating college in the next year or so. And I've been very clear, like, you need to be setting yourself up to where, it's not that I won't give them an exit package. I probably will, but you need to, like, my oldest is like, you need to, as you move this August, you need to be thinking about finding a place that you're going to be able to afford. Right. So again, it's just,
and that's like innovative, right? That's not happening all over the place, quite honestly. I think it's impressive to set the stage early. I mean, everyone asks me like what I want for my kids, and I say that they're employed, like, literally, like, that is my number one. I don't want them to be happy, but I do want them to find and pursue careers that they're passionate about and that they will be working, and that's
I mean, for me, it's like, I have an oldest child who's an artist. And I have a youngest child who's like, Mr. Business, right? So my whole thing is like, I want you to be able to take care of yourself in an emotional and financial sense. I want you to be surrounded by people who love you of whatever flavor, right? Friends, lovers, whatever. And I want you to have something that you do that you're good at and mostly brings you joy. Because the idea that you're going to spend every minute delighted is horseshit.
Yes. And I think planting that seed is really important, and infusing disappointment, quite honestly, early and often, I feel like is one parenting strategy that really can help much later, because I was really alarmed by how disappointing life was later. I had no idea that it was going to be so hard. I didn't. I was like, are you kidding me? All this sadness, all this depression, and all the things was like new.
Right.
I was a hard worker, and if you work hard, you're going to be happy, and isn't everybody else? But like, that wasn't the way. And especially when I became a mom.
How was that after school TV special of a life you had?
Yeah, it was, I don't even know. I don't remember it. We were just running all around, I think going from thing to thing, we never stopped and talked about our feelings either. Like, being honest, like, I
mean, it was discouraged. We were, you're still firmly Gen X, right? I'm definitely like the top end of Gen X. And it's like, just get it done.
Yeah.
Just get it done.
Keep moving through. And that helps. Like, it helps in some, like, with our jobs as being effective attorneys, that mentality of like, we just do the work without stopping to think about our emotions and our feelings. And I think for me, like, having a child, that's the first time the world stopped spinning and I actually like processed emotions, So it was a really different way to approach my adulthood, really.
The reality is as a parent, we all make mistakes. We just make different ones than the ones that were made on us, right?
Yeah.
Everyone throws a wake.
No, it's so
right.
True.
Some people throw the wake of a freighter. Some people throw the wake of a dinghy, depending on the circumstances and. But again, I think the idea that you're going to go through all of this perfectly is crazy. I had an
Yeah.
interesting conversation with my oldest, now 23, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, where he wanted to say, Mom, you know what? I was saying, honey, I was pointing something out that he maybe could be doing better. And he pointed out, he's like, Mom, well, I've got some ideas about your parenting as
Oh,
well.
God.
And I go, great.
Okay, let's go.
I said, if you can present them respectfully, I'd be
Yes.
happy to hear it. If you're going to present them resentfully,
Yeah.
I'm not psyched about that, right? Because everything I'm saying is for what I understand to be your betterment. Because as my dad, I don't know if you remember my dad, but he was an even straighter shooter than I am. And he would say over and over again, whatever age you were. So Carrie, you're 13. He's like, look, Carrie, I've been 13. You've never been 43. Shut it. Right.
Yeah.
So over and over again, he would say,
Yeah.
far less charmingly than a person would have hoped at the age of 13, hearing this from her father. But he kept pointing out to you, like, I'm not saying this for my health.
Yeah.
I'm saying this because either I did it right and it went well, or as he often pointed out to us, I did it all wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to prevent you from having to knock your head against a wall. And some people can learn from other people's mistakes, and some people just have to have a bloody forehead against a brick wall to learn.
Yes.
And so, but that's so much of my personal journey is so much about becoming an expert on professional development, an expert on effective self-advocacy and leadership presence. All frankly has come from doing a lot of things wrong, right?
Yeah.
And so I learned the hard way, the hard, slow, ineffective way. And so my whole thing is like, I would like to give people the cheat code. I would like to give people a clearer, easier path than the one that I had to fashion myself uncomfortably over a way too long period of time. So that's the part where, doing the teaching and doing the work that I do, I'd like, let me please save you the time. And what's really funny is people they go, really? And I go, yes. I am not gatekeeping anything, right?
Yeah. But it's hard to believe in some ways, but then I always feel like, experience is the best teacher. But, the fact that you're willing to share your cheat, and highlight some of the past, because I feel like in motherhood, especially, you only know when you're really doing it wrong. You never really know when it's going awesome. I think I only made significant changes when things were completely falling to shit, to be honest. When I was like, oh my God, this is a change management moment. I wasn't sure, but now I'm super sure. So I don't know if that came across, because you definitely built, even in the self-advocacy concepts and building, even the catalyst, how you've gotten people to get that success in their life came from, there might have been a place somewhere when you weren't feeling it, that you learned what to do.
You've been listening to The Mothers-in-Law with Carrie Foliani. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you found the insights and stories shared helpful as you navigate your own journey. I also hope that you enjoyed listening to my mother. Not that I always do. For more resources, to connect with the community, and to continue exploring how to align your personal and professional life, visit www.themothersinlaw.com. We appreciate you.